Hello there and welcome back to the course. We're now going to focus on the aspect of questions. When we are learning the English language, it's important to remember that we're learning it for a reason to communicate with people. And one of the best ways we can communicate with people is to ask questions, particularly if we are in a city for the first time and we're looking for directions or we're looking for some additional information. Or even if we're making small talk with people, we want to know how to format the questions, what way we can ask them so we can get the maximum amount of information. So during this particular session, we're going to look at questions in a lot more detail. There are about 5 aspects of questions that we want to look at. We're going to split it into 2 particular sessions. Session 1, we will look at short or closed questions, as I like to call them. So these are questions that simply get a yes or no response. Do you like ice cream? Yes or no. Do you live here? Yes or no. So very simple questions, and we'll look at the way we can format those particular questions. And then we'll look at the opposite, the open or long questions. And when we want to ask a long question, it's usually because we want to get some more or additional information, and we're using words like what, where, when, how, why, and who. So this is the way that we will ask those questions. And then in the second session, we will take a look at tag questions. And tag questions are tagged, that's what the word means, to add on to the end of a statement. So you have a statement and then you tag on or you add on a question, and we'll look at how we format those. And then finally, we will look at both indirect and direct questions, and that's really a matter about whether something sounds polite, so we use it in an indirect way, would you mind, and then we ask our question, or direct, where is the train station? Quite direct, you just want some information. Okay, so they're the type of aspects that we're going to look at, and as always there are going to be plenty of examples that I will give you, and at the end of each session we will have our usual quiz, exercises and questions so that you will be able to practice yourself. Okay, so let's start with the aspect of short and closed questions. As I said, these usually require just a yes or no answer, so they're quite simple in the way that they are asked and the way they are set up. So it's important at the beginning to know how to format them. So when you're asking or writing a short question, you have to know what is the word order. So for example, if I make a statement, it is snowing outside, that's a statement, so I start the statement with it is snowing outside, that's a fact. But if I ask the question, I reverse the word order, is it snowing outside? So I'm asking a question because I don't know and I want the information, so I start the question with is. So when I'm using short or closed questions, I usually use auxiliary verbs, have, the verb to be, is or are, and do. Okay, so have you any money? Yes or no. Do you live here? Yes or no. Is it snowing? Yes or no. Are they coming? Yes or no. So simple questions, simple structure, and very short, simple answers, either a yes or no response. Okay, so when we're asking questions, we can ask them in the present simple, do you like rock and roll music? Or you can ask them in the simple past, did you like rock and roll music? So it's just a question of the verb tense. Is it the simple present that you want to use or the simple past? So you're just changing do from simple present to did in the simple past. Okay, so just some simple rules. And also remember, when we are asking these short questions, it's usually for a reason, and the reason is usually that we want to avoid repetition of the question that has been asked, because it's there in the question. Is it snowing outside? We just have to say yes, or yes it is, or no, no it isn't. We don't have to say yes it is snowing outside, no it isn't snowing outside, because that's just repetition that is not necessary. So simple question and a short simple answer. Okay, and remember then that you're going to use these auxiliary verbs, either verb to be, is or are, have or do, or in its past tense, did. Okay, so short closed questions with short answers to follow, and you're not going to get any information, and therefore if you're meeting somebody and you want to have some small talk before a meeting or over lunch, or people that you haven't met before, it would be best to avoid these type of short closed questions, because your conversation with the person is either going to sound very dull and boring, or it's going to come to an end very quickly, because all you will be getting or all you will be giving are yes and no answers, and it's not going to be very informative. So you need to expand those a little bit, and that's why we would then look at long or open questions. So when we are using long and open questions, we often use the WH words like who, what, where, when, and you can also include how in that. And these are the words that we would use as a long question, as an open question, to get more information. For example, where do you come from? You can't say no or yes, because it's looking for information. Where do you come from? Oh, I come from India. What did you have for breakfast? You could say I didn't have anything if you didn't eat any breakfast. But if somebody asks you what did you have for breakfast, assuming you ate something, you could say, oh, I had a bowl of porridge, or I had some toast, I had scrambled eggs. Whatever it is, you're giving some information. How many brothers and sisters do you have? Oh, I have no brothers, but I have one sister. So a nice response in giving the information. When did you arrive here? Oh, I arrived here this afternoon. My flight landed at 2 o'clock. Okay, so you're using again these open questions and these open question words to give more information, and these are much more likely to get you a good response. They are also really very important, as I said earlier, when you meet somebody and you want to have some small talk before lunch, before a meeting, on a train, even on a plane or in the airport. When you have nothing to do, you can ask people these sort of open questions, and if they are responsive, you will get back some very positive information. Okay, so remember, for the short questions, the closed questions, we're using it for brevity, meaning we want to avoid the repetition of certain words. So we are setting up the questions in such a way that we're going to get yes or no answers with not a lot of other information. And then when we use these more open or the long questions, they're a little bit more complicated or complex, and we're using these words what, when, how, where, why. Why did you buy that dog? When did you get a new car? So we're looking all the time for information. Somebody might refuse to answer it, but they're not just going to say yes or no, because that's not the appropriate response. I don't have the information. I don't want to give you that information. So still somebody is replying. You mightn't learn a lot, but this is a more appropriate response for those open questions. Okay, so that's the first session, and look at the quizzes and the exercises that we have put in place here. And then in the next session, we are going to look specifically at the other type of questions, namely tag questions and direct and indirect questions. So we'll look forward to seeing you in the next session.